It was a busy afternoon in one of the city's most luxurious hotels. The lobby buzzed with activity, business people in tailored suits, travelers rushing by, and receptionists juggling phone calls. Glass doors slid open and in walked a man wearing a simple polo shirt, jeans, and a bright red cap with bold white letters, "Make America Great Again." From across the lobby, the hotel manager James noticed him immediately. His smile tightened as he whispered to a nearby staff member, "Another one of those types." James adjusted his perfectly tailored jacket, his eyes following the man as he approached the front desk. The man's demeanor was calm, even friendly, but the cap had already sealed James's opinion. In his mind, there was no way someone like that belonged in his upscale hotel. The man smiled politely at the front desk clerk, unaware of the stares and murmurs around him. Meanwhile, James was already plotting how to make him leave. The man approached the front desk with a calm smile and slid a printed confirmation across the marble counter. "I have a reservation," he said, his voice steady and polite. Amanda, the receptionist, hesitated as she glanced at the paper. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but before she could finish typing, James swooped in. "Don't worry, Amanda. I'll take care of this," James said, his tone exuding forced politeness. His sharp, polished shoes echoed against the floor as he stood directly in front of the man, blocking Amanda from view. James took the confirmation slip and examined it briefly, not even bothering to read the details. With a tight-lipped smile, he handed it back. "I'm sorry, sir, but there seems to be an issue with your booking. It's not showing up in our system." The man frowned, still trying to remain patient. "That's odd. I booked this weeks ago and even confirmed over the phone yesterday. Could you check again, please?" James's expression didn't falter, but his tone grew cooler. "I'm afraid that won't change anything. The system doesn't lie. We're fully booked tonight, there's nothing more I can do." Nearby guests were beginning to notice the exchange. Some whispered among themselves while others pretended not to eavesdrop. The man's calm demeanor persisted. "Is there a manager I could speak to about this?" he asked, not realizing he was already speaking to the top authority on site. "You're speaking to him," James replied curtly, his tone laced with superiority. "And as I said, we're at capacity. Perhaps there's a motel down the road that can accommodate you." He gestured dismissively toward the exit. The man blinked in disbelief, but he didn't lose his composure. "I understand mistakes happen, but I'd appreciate it if you could take another look. I'm not here to cause trouble." James folded his arms, his face now betraying his irritation. "Sir, I've already explained the situation. There's nothing else I can do. We have standards to maintain here." The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting. A few guests in the lobby exchanged uncomfortable glances. Amanda, still standing behind the desk, looked down, clearly uneasy. The man remained quiet for a moment, his lips pressed into a thin line as if debating whether to press the issue further. Finally, he took a deep breath and spoke. "Could you please get someone higher up to check just to make sure there isn't a mistake?" he asked, his voice steady but firm. James smirked. "Sir, there is no one higher than me at this property. If you'd like to take this further, you're welcome to file a complaint. But as far as your stay tonight is concerned, there's nothing I can do." The tension was palpable. The man nodded slowly, his patience clearly wearing thin, but his demeanor still calm. "I see. Thank you for your time," he said, stepping back. His calmness seemed to rattle James, though the manager masked it with a satisfied look. What James didn't know was that this encounter was far from over. As the man stepped away from the front desk, he noticed the hushed whispers and stolen glances from other guests. In the lobby, a group of business travelers at a nearby seating area exchanged looks of confusion, clearly uncomfortable with how the situation was unfolding. One of them muttered, "That was uncalled for." The man took a moment to steady himself, running his hand over the brim of his red hat. His face was calm, but his eyes hinted at frustration. He wasn't the type to cause a scene, but the blatant disrespect was hard to ignore. As he glanced back at the counter, James was already chatting with a well-dressed couple, flashing them the warm, professional smile he had withheld from him just moments ago. Determined, the man returned to the counter, waiting patiently for James to finish with the other guests. The couple smiled politely at the man as they walked away, but James's face hardened the moment they were out of earshot. "You're back?" James asked, his tone barely masking his irritation. "I thought we'd settled this." The man didn't flinch. "I just want to confirm one more thing. I checked my email and it clearly shows a confirmed reservation. You're sure there's no way to accommodate me? James let out a sharp sigh, loud enough for others to hear. He turned to Amanda. Amanda, check again. But I'm telling you, there's nothing in the system. Amanda nervously typed on her keyboard, her face growing pale as she scanned the screen. Mr. Carson, she began, but James cut her off. See? Nothing, he said, waving a dismissive hand at her. He turned back to the man. Like I said, sir, we're fully booked. But sir, Amanda interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. There's a note here. James froze. His smile faded as he stepped closer to Amanda, peering at her screen. She pointed to a highlighted entry on the reservation list, but James quickly tapped the keyboard, minimizing it. That's irrelevant, he said hastily. It's probably an error in the system. The man watched the interaction carefully, his calm exterior masking his growing suspicion. He leaned slightly over the counter. An error? He asked, his voice low but firm. Or are you just trying to get rid of me? James straightened up, his jaw tightening. Sir, I think it's time for you to leave. We don't tolerate accusations like that here. A murmur swept through the lobby, as more guests began to notice the exchange. The man held his ground, his voice unwavering. I'm not accusing you. I'm asking for fairness. But if you're unwilling to give, maybe I should take this to someone who will. James scoffed, crossing his arms. Go ahead, good luck finding someone who'll take your complaint seriously. The man gave James one last look, a mix of disappointment and quiet resolve before turning away. He reached for his phone, dialing a number as he walked toward the lobby seating area. James watched him, still convinced he'd won this round, but the manager had no idea the tables were about to turn. Sitting calmly in the lobby, the man ended his phone call, his expression unreadable. James watched him from the front desk, a smug look on his face as he leaned casually against the counter. To him, the situation was over. He'd sent a clear message. People like that didn't belong in his hotel. But then something unexpected happened. A black SUV pulled up to the entrance, and within moments, a sharply dressed woman stepped into the lobby. She moved with purpose, her heels clicking against the polished floor, and approached the man. They exchanged a few words before she turned toward the front desk. Who's the manager here? She asked, her voice sharp and authoritative. James straightened up, adjusting his jacket. That would be me, he said, stepping forward with his signature. Fake smile. How can I assist you? Her expression didn't soften. I just got off the phone with Mr. Reynolds. You denied him service? James blinked, caught off guard. Mr. Reynolds? He repeated, glancing toward the man in the MAGA hat who was now standing with his arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. Yes, Mr. Reynolds, the owner of this hotel chain, she said coldly, emphasizing every word. And he just informed me of the way you treated him. The room fell silent. Guests who had been pretending not to eavesdrop now openly stared. James's face turned pale as the weight of her words sank in. I think there's been a misunderstanding, James stammered, his confidence crumbling. I had no idea. That's exactly the problem, the woman interrupted. You didn't know who he was, but you still judged him based on his appearance. And worse, you violated every principle of professionalism this company stands for. James opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The man in the red hat, Mr. Reynolds, finally stepped forward, his calm demeanor now laced with quiet authority. You didn't know who I was, James, he said, his voice steady but cutting. And that's fine. But you assumed you did know me, and you treated me like I didn't deserve to be here. The silence in the room was deafening. James's hands trembled slightly as he tried to compose himself. Mr. Reynolds, I deeply apologize if I had known. But you didn't, Mr. Reynolds interrupted. And that's the point. How many other guests have you treated like this? How many people have walked through those doors and been dismissed because they didn't fit your idea of who belongs here? James's mouth moved, but no sound came out. He looked around, desperate for an ally, but even Amanda, the receptionist, averted her eyes. I'll be reviewing everything that happened here, Mr. Reynolds continued, his voice firm. But for now, I think you owe this entire lobby an apology, not just to me, but to everyone who witnessed this. James swallowed hard, his humiliation complete. He turned to the guests, his voice shaky. I deeply regret my actions. To everyone here, I apologize for my unprofessional behavior. But Mr. Reynolds wasn't done. An apology is a start, he said, taking off his hat and holding it at his side. But actions speak louder than words. And trust me, changes are coming. The lobby remained eerily quiet as Mr. Reynolds placed his hat back on, its bold red letters now impossible to ignore. James stood frozen, his confidence shattered and his arrogance exposed. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mr. Reynolds broke the silence. "This hotel isn't just about luxury," he began, turning to address everyone in the lobby. "It's about how we treat people. Every single guest who walks through these doors deserves respect, whether they're wearing a suit or a simple red hat." James's face burned with embarrassment as Mr. Reynolds continued. "Judgment and discrimination have no place here, or in any business that claims to value its customers." The woman who had arrived earlier, a senior executive in the company, stepped forward. "As Mr. Reynolds said, this isn't just about today. We will be conducting a full review of the staff and the training protocols here. Changes will be made to ensure something like this never happens again." The guests in the lobby began to murmur, nodding in agreement. One traveler spoke up, addressing Mr. Reynolds directly. "Thank you for standing up for what's right. People notice things like this and it makes all the difference." Mr. Reynolds gave a small smile. "It's not about who I am. It's about treating everyone the way they deserve to be treated. That's how we build trust and integrity, whether in business or in life." As the tension eased, James approached Mr. Reynolds, his voice trembling. "Sir, I truly regret my actions. I hope I can earn back your trust." Mr. Reynolds regarded him thoughtfully. "The trust of the people isn't something you can earn back with words alone. Let your actions speak from now on." With that, Mr. Reynolds gave one last nod to the staff and guests before walking out of the lobby. The SUV was waiting and he climbed in without another word. The car disappeared down the road, leaving behind a shaken but transformed atmosphere in the hotel. In the days that followed, the story of what happened spread across social media. Guests shared their accounts of the event, praising Mr. Reynolds for his humility and his firm stand against prejudice. The hotel underwent sweeping changes in its policies, and James, though allowed to stay, was demoted to a junior position, tasked with retraining under close supervision. The lesson was clear. Assumptions and biases, no matter how subtle, have consequences. The video ends with a powerful message on screen. Respect is earned through actions, not appearances. Treat others with the dignity they deserve.